Coach, now that you've had time to go back and look at the film of the South Carolina game, obviously the points in the paint that they got sticks out in the post defense. When you look back at the film, what stood out to you as why things were so easy for them at time in the post?
A bunch of things did. Overall, by numbers, sheer numbers, it was a very poor performance by us defensively in terms of efficiency. There's a lot that goes into that that comes out on the other side. That was really disappointing. Going into the game, we felt really good about our plan. We felt good about our practices, but not to shy away from your question, but I have to give them a lot of credit. Mac and the freshmen played really, really well. I mean, they were 17 for 21 with 19 rebounds between them, and that's a pretty dominating performance. From the starting 4 and 5, and they had a lot to do with it. Boyles made some big time moves and finishes, and Mac showed an ability to not just be a pick and pop guy, to be able to maneuver a little bit going towards the basket and put our defense in some awkward situations at times. But you can't place all the blame on our 4s and 5s. I've said over and over that our defense is not about certain matchups. There's times where we want them to dominate that matchup, but overall, it's everybody's involved in guarding the ball and having responsibilities depending on what's going on. And we just didn't do a very good job against South Carolina, in particular. Those two guys.
Go ahead, Justin.
Chris, you've mentioned a bunch of times this year about how you guys treat every game, like it's the Super Bowl, like it's your biggest game. During this time of year when after Thursday nothing is guaranteed, does that make it easier for you to push that point across to these guys?
I don't know. Time will tell. But our approach, doesn't change this week. I mean, I don't want people out there, listening to this and saying, why wouldn't they be all in? Why wouldn't they be more? And I promise you, because that's kind of what we do. I mean, you can't be more intense about preparing. You can't watch, more video. We do, in my opinion, our due diligence every single time, regardless of the opponent. And we have a routine that we go through, and it's a little bit different for each opponent depending on who's the lead scout or not. And I have my own little routine to catch up from game to game as the head coach. But, certainly it's everybody understands that. Most of these kids have played in conference tournaments, and, it's just different. The intensity is different. What you're playing for, is different, and it's a survive and advance or win and go home. And, nobody wants to do that. Everybody wants to stay as long as possible. And what you'll see is just hyper intense basketball games from everybody that's down there. And hopefully, we're going to be one of those teams that figures out ways to win games.
Back to the cameras and John, and then we'll go down here to Danny P. and Paul.
Hey, Chris. After the South Carolina game Cam was talking about, we asked him about, if the team kind of had a mindset of, okay, like if we won against South Carolina, then our resume would have been a lot more boosted for the NCAA tournament. I guess kind of going into the SEC, is there any kind of benchmark? Because I know obviously y'all are very, you know a lot about the net and where you stand currently for the tournament and all that stuff. Is there any conversations about that really of, okay, like if we beat LSU, would get in? I know you guys don't control that, but I don't know how much of that's talked about in the locker room, maybe as bulletin board material or anything like that.
I get asked that a lot, about what I think of where we're at and what we need. And I see other coaches, get in these environments and have platforms and, vouch for their team and go, drill down on why they should be included in the NCAA tournament. And I've got to believe that the committee members don't pay any mind to that. I don't think they really care what an individual coach thinks about his team and why it should be included. If that was part of the process, then I think we'd all have some sort of avenue to go through to, preach our case, if you will. So my answer is always the same, that, how I feel about our team and why we should be included right now or with whatever scenario comes next, is irrelevant in my opinion. My focus probably needs to be more on, how do I get my team better? Can I prepare them better, rather than spending a bunch of time on talking about, why we should be in and comparing myself and our team's resume to others. These folks in that room obviously are there for a reason, and they've got all the tools that, they need at their disposal. And I know they've already, for weeks been working on, teams and evaluating teams, and I know the process fairly well. And at the end of the day, we're just trying to win the next game and trying to put ourselves in the best position possible.
Danny P to coach's right.
Coach, we've all seen Tolu play for a very long time now, and we've asked you about him several times. So what does it say about him after missing 12 games with his foot injury to come back and get to this status of first-team All-SEC and first-team All-American once again?
Yeah, I'm happy for him. You never know how someone will respond to an injury, and I've said this, when he came back, fortunately, he's been there, done that, and so he knows what it takes to rehab and do his time, because it's time-consuming to come back from that serious of an injury and those type of surgeries, and it's no fun. And you're doing it, in the dark, if you will, when nobody's watching, nobody's cheering for you, and it's a long process, and you just never know. And because of his experience, because of his person, he did it like a rock star, and he listened and followed directions, and fortunately came out the other side in a really good spot and was able to, dive in fairly quickly and get back to his form. Only he knows, how he feels, but I think it's a great testament to Tolu Smith as a competitor, as I've talked about many times. His work ethic is second to none. In 31 years I've coached, I can't say anybody's worked any harder than Tolu in the 2 years that I've been around him. And as a coach, that's the type of young people that you want to be around. Sometimes, we feel like if this kid would just dedicate himself a little bit more, there'd be a bigger horizon for him, and that's not the case with Tolu. You never say that about him. He lives in the gym. He's all about the program and the team, and he deserves, all the accolades that he receives.
Got time for a couple more. Back to Paul.
Obviously, it may just be a coincidence, or it may be more about his lack of urgency, but second year in a row we've seen Ram start to play his best basketball down the stretch, and outside of a game here or there, he's been pretty consistent over the last few games. Your thoughts on that? Do you think it is a sense of urgency with him, or just the fact that he's feeling more confident?
Great question. I don't know. Never try to be coy with you guys, but if I knew, I'd have fixed it and made sure he plays at that level all the time, but that's not been the case. But love this version of Rams the best, and I've said it all year long. We're different when he's engaged in the head of the snake defensively and getting into the ball and dictating the ball and revving our engine in that particular possession, and he plays better offensively when he does that too. An offense is a lot about confidence, and, Rams is like a lot of players out there. I mean, when the ball goes through the net, his confidence rises, and when it doesn't, it goes the other way. And, that's the biggest thing with him, is just to see that ball go through the net, both in practice and the games. And when that happens, we get the best version of him. And when he's in that mode, he really, really helps our team.
John, go ahead.
Chris, heading into the SEC tournament again after playing the gauntlet of this conference this year, it being your second year, how much better do you think the SEC is kind of as a whole when it comes to just talent and teams and all that good stuff? How much better do you think it is this year than last?
First, I've been asked this before, with the unbalanced scheduling of the SEC, with the number of teams, et cetera. I'm not sure if this is correct, but it's got to be, if not the hardest strength of schedule in our own league. It's got to be one of the top 2 or 3. And I'm on record saying I hope they do that every time. I know it's kind of luck of the draw, some algorithm that spits out who plays who every single year. But I would rather have it that way, even though our record may not be as glossier if our strength of schedule would be lesser. I mean, who knows, how it turns out. But those opportunities are what you're looking for. But I believe that the league definitely is better than last year. And in anticipation of the season, when asked that question, that was, my answer is that I really felt like, there may not have been quite as heavy of top-end teams as maybe some years, but, the folks that finished in the middle or towards the end of last year, I thought had really improved with their roster additions and coaches there were so many new coaches next year, being in that second year with the comfort level of understanding the league a little bit better and how people play and the venues, et cetera. Experience is something you can't teach but can only help. And I do believe from top to bottom that it's better. There's more parity and more teams that can beat each other every single night.
Justin and Benjamin, to wrap us up.
We may have asked you about this before, but it seemed like a lot on Saturday. Cam was bringing the ball up and was in a lot of possessions, was like the primary ball handler. What do you just like about that look, about being able to get him downhill really quickly in a possession and sort of making the defense make a choice on what to do there? Yeah,
we've been doing that off and on all year long. We have, a number of sets and actions that we feel like, with Cam or even Keyshawn up there, Keyshawn, similar actions with Cam, different style of play, but similar, pieces on the board, if you will. And there's some things that they do that we feel like, put some pressure on the defense and gets, guys like Josh and Rams, off the ball and maybe try to either use them as spacers or even decoys to try to help some other guys, get in position to score. And it's been fairly successful for us, and we've added some things to it as the season progressed, but I definitely like the fact that it just gives us a different look at times.
It's only been a couple weeks, I know, since you've seen LSU and were able to win that game on the road. Anything different you've seen from them just watching their last few games? I know they sort of benefited from a softer schedule to close out the season. Do you see anything different from them then versus now?
They've had really good three-point shooting numbers the majority of the year. When you first look at them, that's what you see is how well they've shot the three as a group, and they're still doing that percentage-wise. But from what I see in the 4 games that they've played since us, is there's just a little more aggressive offensively in terms of pushing the basketball and trying to score early, in a quick, fast break situation. And then even in the half court, just more downhill, more aggressive, trying to get to the rim, get to the free throw line, not relying maybe on as many three-point attempts as they were earlier in the season. But, you'll see most teams, as the season winds down, try to score a little bit more in transition because, in theory, most teams are a little bit better in the half court when you get to this point. And now you're playing teams for the second and third time, and the familiarity with one another and what they're running, and even, having a lot of their calls or hand signals makes it harder to score sometimes in the half court. So you'll see a push most years for teams to try to score a little bit better in transition down the stretch.